In December 1944, during the harsh winter in the Ardennes Forest of Belgium, over 250,000 German soldiers launched a powerful surprise attack through the snowy landscape. This was Hitler's final, desperate attempt to turn the tide of the war. His goal was to split the Allied forces and capture the important port city of Antwerp. As the German attack picked up speed, an ordinary-looking American Jeep drove through the dangerous icy terrain. Mud and snow flew from its tires as it moved forward. Inside were three men, appearing to be regular American soldiers. In a war full of troops, they seemed unimportant. But at that time, the U.S. military was on high alert due to reports of German spies and disguised soldiers creating chaos behind Allied lines. The Jeep was stopped at a checkpoint near a small bridge in a Belgian village called Ivella. When the men couldn't speak fluent English or give the correct password, American soldiers grew suspicious. A detailed search of the vehicle revealed the truth. Hidden under the seat were two British-made machine guns, a large roll of freshly printed fake $100 bills, and parts of German uniforms under their American clothes. One of the three men, the most nervous, admitted during questioning that his real name was Wilhelm Schmidt, a corporal in the German army. They were part of a secret mission called Operation Greif. This mission was created by one of Hitler's most feared commandos, Lieutenant Colonel Otto Skorzeny. The mission's goal was not just to cause confusion, but to capture a major Allied general. This discovery shocked the American command. The enemy wasn't just attacking from the front, they were blending in, wearing U.S. uniforms, and speaking English. As the Battle of the Bulge continued, the Allies now had to worry about hidden enemies in their own ranks, making it harder to tell friend from foe. Stopping these imposters became just as important as winning on the battlefield. After Germany's defeat at Stalingrad, the Soviet Red Army was moving fast and powerfully. By late 1944, Hitler knew Berlin could fall to the Soviets unless he could shift troops from the west to defend the east. But things in the west weren't much better. Since breaking out from Normandy in June 1944, the Western Allies were advancing steadily and had reached the edge of German territory. Still, Hitler believed he had a chance. He thought the alliance between Britain and the U.S. was weak. If he could drive a wedge between them, maybe America would agree to peace, letting Germany fight the Soviets alone. Germany, however, was in bad shape. Its army had fewer men, limited supplies, and failing weapons. A new attack would need every bit of strength the German military had left. Hitler's plan copied a tactic from 4 years earlier: move fast through the Ardennes Forest. This time, his elite 6th Panzer Army would lead the charge. If they could break through U.S. lines, cross the Meuse River, and take Antwerp, they could split the Allied forces in two. This might cause a disaster similar to Dunkirk in 1940. If it worked, the Allies might be forced to rethink the war. But if it failed, Germany could lose everything. Still, Hitler refused to play it safe. The key to the plan was surprise. The Allies had to believe Germany was too weak to fight back. So, German troops secretly gathered at night, hiding in forests, barns, and villages. From the air, everything looked peaceful. Even German soldiers didn't know the full plan. Only top officers were told just hours before the battle. Many warned Hitler not to go through with it, but he ignored them. While the main German force prepared for attack, a darker plan was also in motion. As the main assault began, a special group of German agents launched Operation Greif, led by the well-known commando Otto Skorzeny. These German soldiers wore American and British uniforms and spoke English. They slipped behind us lines to sabotage communication, destroy key targets, and spread confusion. There were even rumors that their mission included capturing General Dwight Eisenhower and his staff. 2 months earlier, in October 1944, Otto Skorzeny had been called to Hitler's secret base in East Prussia. Skorzeny was over 6 feet tall and had deep scars on his face from fencing in his youth. He had become a favorite of Hitler, especially after rescuing Italian leader Benito Mussolini in 1943 from a mountaintop prison. 1 year later, he proved his skill again during Operation Panzer. He kidnapped the son of Hungary's leader to keep the country under Nazi control. These bold missions made him a legend, and now Hitler gave him another critical job for the Ardennes offensive. His mission, to organize 3,300 men for a special unit called Panzer Brigade 150. This special German unit had a bold mission: to take control of and destroy as many bridges over the Meuse River as possible before the Allies could secure or destroy them. To do this, they planned to wear American uniforms and use captured U.S. tanks and vehicles. Their tricks included changing road signs, giving fake orders, removing warning signs from minefields, and blocking roads to confuse the Allied troops. Although clever, these actions clearly broke the rules of war under the Geneva Convention. But for Hitler and Skorzeny, the risks were worth it if it meant success. So, Operation Greif officially began, with Skorzeny given wide authority to carry out the plan. He had just 6 weeks to get everything ready. On October 25, 1944, The German High Command secretly asked for soldiers who could speak English. However, on November 30th, the Allies picked up on this message but assumed it was a trick and didn't take it seriously. The German recruits thought they were being prepared for translation duties and were tested in English. Those who passed were warned to keep everything secret or face execution. These selected soldiers were taken to Camp Grafenwöhr in Bavaria, which was turned into a hidden training base. There, they were trained to act like American soldiers. One young recruit, Fritz Kreis, remembered, "We had to watch American movies to learn how us soldiers saluted and smoked. We even had daily lessons in American slang." But despite all this training, most recruits weren't fluent. Only about 400 could speak basic English, and just 10 spoke it well. The rest were told to pretend to be wounded or mute to avoid speaking. The best speakers were sent to American POW camps to improve their accents and behavior. But many real American prisoners refused to help. In the end, a small group of trained Germans was ready to sneak behind enemy lines and target key bridges. Though the plan was daring, reality made it tough to execute. Skorzeny's force of just over 2,500 men would travel and captured American jeeps and tanks, trying to act like U.S. troops. Their mission, capture at least one bridge over the Meuse before the Allies could destroy it. To prepare, the unit needed U.S. military, gear tanks, armored cars, jeeps, trucks, guns, and uniforms. These were meant to be delivered to Grafenwöhr for training, but things didn't go as planned. Only to worn-out Sherman tanks arrived, and they also received unwanted Polish and Russian gear from confused German units. Even worse, most of Skorzeny's soldiers didn't speak good English. Only 10 were fluent. So, he scaled back the force from 3 battalions to 2. He also formed a special unit called Einheitsstieler from the best English speakers. To strengthen the brigade, extra troops were brought in from SS and Luftwaffe units. Still, the total number of men 2,500 was 800 short of the goal. The equipment problem was serious. Only the commando group had full American weapons. Just for scout cars, 30 jeeps, and 15 trucks were available, so they had to use German vehicles, painted in US colors with Allied markings. Of the 2 Sherman tanks, only one worked. German Panther tanks were made to look like American M10 tank destroyers using thin metal coverings. There was also another problem. Their own German troops might mistake them for the enemy and shoot at them. To prevent this, they created special identification signs, small yellow triangles on the backs of their vehicles. Tank guns turned to the 9 o'clock position, soldiers wearing pink or blue scarves, removing helmets, or using red and blue flashlight signals at night. These strange but necessary signs were their way of staying safe, both from the Allies and their fellow Germans. But time was slipping away fast. All the focus on teaching American slang, customs, and military structure meant little time was left for actual combat training or sabotage skills. Then, on December 16, 1944, the German offensive in the Ardennes began with a massive roar. Hidden among the attacking German forces was Panzer Brigade 150. 2 days later, on December 8, American military police stopped a suspicious jeep near the bridge at Ivala. Inside were Manfred Paz, Rick Gunther Billing, and Wilhelm Schmidtal, disguised in U.S. uniforms. When their jeep was searched, it revealed hidden weapons, explosives, fake money, and Nazi symbols. After intense questioning, the men broke down and admitted they were German soldiers. Schmidt explained their secret training and mission to spy on Allied infrastructure and create chaos. He also started spreading a false story that they were ordered to capture General Eisenhower and his top staff. This lie worked. Eisenhower was quickly moved into a secure location, which limited his ability to lead. He was stuck away from his office during Christmas and became furious. Finally, angry and fed up, he came out of hiding and ordered wanted posters for Skorzeny to be sent across Europe. This led to Skorzeny's capture after the war in 1945. But the story didn't end there. Even while some of the disguised Germans were caught, others from Panzer Brigade 150 continued their attacks. They broke supply lines, cut off communications, and redirected traffic, causing confusion across the Allied ranks. In one case, a German group even misled an entire Allied regiment, causing more disorder. Meanwhile, another German operation called Operation Stasser dropped paratroopers behind U.S. lines to take a key road near Mahmudi. As days passed, more disguised Germans were discovered among the Allies. This sparked fear and mistrust. Soldiers no longer felt safe. Even their own comrades might be enemies in disguise. The once confident Allied troops were now filled with fear, constantly looking over their shoulders, worried that a hidden enemy might strike at any moment. The Allies had been caught off guard by Operation Greif. Shaken by what had happened, American intelligence quickly shifted its approach. They set up careful systems to stop disguised German soldiers from sneaking into their ranks. Suspicion was everywhere. Any soldier might be the enemy in disguise. Checkpoints were set up all over, and every soldier was questioned to prove their loyalty. To catch imposters, American officers came up with clever security questions that focused on American culture things, like baseball and lesser-known state capitals. These questions were meant to trip up even the best-trained German spies. Soldiers started testing each other. Friendships gave way to doubt and fear, as no one could be sure who was real and who wasn't. Even high-ranking officers weren't safe. Brigadier General Bruce Clark was held at gunpoint because he answered a baseball question incorrectly. A captain who had stolen German boots was locked up for a week. General Omar Bradley himself was stopped and questioned many times by nervous guards. But this strict checking came with a cost. The fear created by Skorzeny's tactics led to multiple friendly fire accidents. Military police accidentally shot fellow American soldiers, and one U.S. armored division even fired on another by mistake. In some cases, a simple spelling mistake on a soldier's ID card led to intense questioning. While this security worked against German infiltrators, it also created problems for non-American troops. British and other Allied soldiers who didn't know much about American culture now faced dangerous misunderstandings. British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery experienced this firsthand. After hearing that Eisenhower had been moved into isolation, Montgomery gathered a small team and drove to the heavily guarded area of Malmedy to raise morale. But rumors were spreading that one of Skorzeny's men had disguised himself as part of Montgomery's group. At a checkpoint, the guards stopped them. Angered by the suspicion, Montgomery told his driver to push through. The American guards panicked and fired at the vehicle, shooting the tires. Montgomery was then arrested and held for hours of questioning. Despite all the precautions, 44 German soldiers wearing American uniforms still managed to cross into U.S. territory. Only 8 were captured, but after December 19th, the Germans lost the element of surprise and many went back to wearing their own uniforms. Even after the mission faded, its impact stayed. Every report of enemy infiltration was blamed on Skorzeny's men. German troops often wore parts of American uniforms they had found, making it harder to tell friend from foe and keeping fear alive in the hearts of Allied troops. Operation Greif turned the forest of the Ardennes into a nightmare for American soldiers. Everywhere they looked, they feared sabotage and betrayal. What was once familiar became a place of confusion and danger. Still, the operation had limits. The number of German commandos was small. Their access to real American gear was limited. Most of them didn't speak English well. These weaknesses held the operation back, although it caused trouble at first. Operation Greif was only a small part of the much bigger Battle of the Bulge. The sabotage, friendly fire, and confusion slowed the Allies, but didn't stop them. The Allied forces kept going, shaken but determined. The German attack made a dent in the front lines, but it couldn't stop the momentum. German forces were stretched too thin. They were running low on supplies, had fewer troops, and were losing strength every day. The failure to capture Bastogne, despite a fierce fight, was a major blow to the German effort. As the new year began in 1945, Allied aircraft began pounding the German army. The troops, stuck and starving, were not allowed to retreat due to Hitler's strict orders. By January 11th, near Bastogne, the German units began falling apart. The Battle of the Bulge ended the way it started. By the end of January, the German Bulge in the front line had disappeared, like a stretched rubber band snapping back to its original shape. The German army was exhausted and could no longer launch another large-scale attack. Amid the chaos, the Americans had held firm. They not only stopped the larger German push, but also dealt with Skorzeny's secret sabotage plan. The bridges were still standing, the communication lines were still working, and the German spies in American uniforms had been caught and punished. Because they broke the laws of war, many of these German soldiers were executed. Their trickery came to an end as the battle wound down. The once feared Panzer Brigade 150 was pulled out of the Ardennes and folded into a regular SS unit, now only a shadow of its original form. After the war, during the famous Nuremberg trials, Skorzeny showed no regret for breaking the rules of war. He was accused of attacking American prisoners while wearing U.S. uniforms, which marked him as a war criminal. But his story took an unexpected turn. At the 1947 war crimes trials in Dachau, Skorzeny was surprisingly found not guilty due to a lack of solid evidence, whose lawyers argued that British Special Forces had also worn enemy uniforms. A Royal Air Force officer named Wing Commander Forrest Yo Thomas, who the Germans called the White Rabbit, supported Skorzeny's case. He told the court that he had escaped German captivity by disguising himself and other prisoners in German uniforms, saying it wasn't different from what Skorzeny had done. After the trial, Skorzeny escaped from his prison camp in 1948 with help from former SS members. He lived under fake names in different countries. In his later years, he got involved in far-right politics and helped other Nazi criminals escape. He eventually settled in Spain, where he lived until his death in 1975. His bold plan, Operation Greif, caused fear and confusion among the Allies. He and his men had turned soldiers against each other and spread mistrust across the front lines. But in the end, Operation Greif was swallowed up by the powerful Allied push forward. No matter how carefully Skorzeny planned, or how sneaky his tactics were, the operation could not change the outcome of the Battle of the Bulge. Germany's attack, driven by desperation and low on resources, collapsed under the strength of the Allied forces. The feared Panzer Brigade 150 faded into history. Asterisk.